It has been a while since we did a Great Leaders and Empires episode, so let's return to the world of historical leaders with some more of your suggestions. This time around Europe, Asia, and Africa. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon was born in Corsica, but by the time he was 16, he had already joined the French army. After helping the Committee of Public Safety to put down the revolt in the Vendée, he was made general of the Army of Italy at the age of 24. At the age of 34, he was made first consul, essentially making him dictator for life. He then conquered most of Europe, establishing the First French Empire. But after defeating Austria, Russia, Sweden, and a coalition of European powers, his empire began to fall apart when his attempt to invade Spain resulted in guerrilla warfare, where neither side could get a decisive victory. When a revolt broke out in Haiti, which France still owned at the time, he sent troops to put it down, which turned into a disaster. There was a shortage of food and supplies, and the French forces were decimated. That kind of led to the downfall of Napoleon's empire. He was forced to abdicate in 1814 and died in exile in 1821. Genghis Khan. Yes, we all know Genghis Khan was pretty much responsible for creating the Mongol Empire, one of, if not the largest empires in history. The guy started out as a tribal chief, but by 1206 he united the Mongols under his banner and established the Mongol Empire. He continued to expand the empire throughout his life, even though he died in 1227, and his empire would continue expanding until 1290. Just about, he's known as a ruthless warrior who didn't take prisoners and slaughtered anyone who defied him. But he wasn't all bad. He promoted religious tolerance, started one of the largest libraries of his time, and helped trade routes flourish. But yeah, he was also responsible for the deaths of millions of people. So, mixed bag. Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great is the king of Macedon. His father, Philip, had recently conquered Greece and wanted his son to rule over the region. When Philip was assassinated, Alexander took over as king at the age of 20. He set out to conquer the Persian Empire, something his father had failed to do, and he did it, conquering everything from Egypt to India. Along the way, he founded many cities, one of which became known as Alexandria. During his reign, there was a fusion of Greek and Eastern cultures, which became known as Hellenism. Unfortunately, he died in Babylon in 323 BC from unknown causes. Some say he was poisoned, others say malaria. Who knows? Either way, his empire would break apart almost immediately after his death. Cyrus the Great. Cyrus the Great is the founder of the Achaemenid Empire. When he came to power, his empire consisted of modern-day Iran, Iraq, and Turkey. But during his reign, he expanded his empire to include most of the Middle East. Under his reign, there was religious tolerance, the introduction of a common currency and a road system that stretched from Sardis to Susa, which was over 1,600 miles. He even freed the Jews from the persecution of the Babylonians and allowed them to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. One of the reasons he was so successful was because he used a method of governing known as the satrap system. In this system, the empire was divided into provinces called satrapies, each ruled by a satrap or governor, and they were expected to collect taxes, maintain order, and raise an army if needed. It worked really well, and it was used for centuries. He died sometime around 530 BC, probably from natural causes. Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar was a Roman general and statesman who played a large part in the events that led to the fall of the Roman Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire. He came from a wealthy patrician family, but it wasn't exactly rich. His father had to borrow money to pay for his public offices. So when Caesar's uncle, Gaius Marius, came to power, Caesar began to climb the social ladder. By 59 BC, he was elected consul along with two other men, Pompey and Crassus. This alliance became known as the First Triumvirate. Together, they controlled the entire Roman political system. Caesar went on to conquer Gaul, which is now France. During his campaigns, he wrote about his military victories, claiming that he had defeated 3 million enemies and taken over 700 cities. After returning to Rome, he was named dictator, which gave him absolute power. He began to implement reforms such as a new calendar, but his rivals, led by Pompey, wanted him gone. In 44 BC, a group of senators killed Caesar, ending his life and the Roman Republic. Asoka the Great was the third ruler of the Mauryan Empire in ancient India. He came to power after his father, Binjasara, died. Upon taking the throne, he embarked on a campaign to conquer the rest of the Indian subcontinent. After his conquests, he turned to reforming and strengthening the empire, focusing on the welfare of his people. His edicts are inscribed on pillars and rocks across India and are notable for being some of the earliest examples of human rights. Some of his edicts read, quote, "Let no religious or non-religious man going on a journey for religious purposes or for the sake of trading be hindered." End quote. Pretty progressive for the time period. He also established a council of 8 ministers to assist him in ruling. One of these ministers was his daughter, Princess Chirmati. She would go on to become empress after her father's death. Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa was the third king of the Mali Empire. When he came to power, the empire was one of the wealthiest in the world due to the wealth from its gold and salt mines. With that wealth, he launched a massive building project, constructing mosques, universities, and hospitals. But he's most famous for his pilgrimage to Mecca. From 1324 to 1325, he assembled a massive convoy that has become a thing of legend. Queen Elizabeth I. Queen Elizabeth I was the last monarch of the Tudor dynasty. Her mother, Anne Boleyn, had been executed when Elizabeth was 3 years old, which made Elizabeth next in line after her half-sister, Mary. When Mary came to power, she stripped Elizabeth of her titles and imprisoned her. When Mary died, Elizabeth took the throne in 1558. During her reign, England became a major player in world trade and exploration, thanks to Sir Francis Drake. On the religious front, she established a middle ground between Catholicism and Protestantism, which became known as Anglicanism. She also saw the defeat of the Spanish Armada, which had been sent to overthrow her and replace her with a Catholic monarch. She remained unmarried her entire life, which gave rise to the term, the Virgin Queen. She died in 1603, leaving the throne to her cousin, James VI of Scotland. Harun al-Rashid. Harun al-Rashid was the fifth Abbasid Caliph. When he took the throne, in 763, the Abbasid Caliphate was at the height of its power and wealth. He continued that trend, expanding the empire into North Africa, Central Asia, and France. During his reign, Baghdad became a center of culture and learning. He was responsible for commissioning the House of Wisdom, which became one of the most important intellectual centers of the time. He was also responsible for promoting science, literature, and philosophy, both within Islam and outside of it. He died in 809. The cause of his death is unknown. Some sources claim he died while trying to put down a revolt in the Khorasan province. Others say he was killed by a stone thrown from a catapult during a siege. Still others say he was gored by a bull while on a hunting trip. Who knows? The point is, he had a pretty good run. Ashoka II. Ashoka II came to power after his grandfather, Mansa Musa, died. When he took the throne, he inherited an empire that was in decline. The once great Mali Empire was being pushed back by the Songhai Empire. But despite these setbacks, he set out to restore Mali to its former glory. He launched military campaigns against the Songhai and succeeded in pushing them back. He also campaigned against the Kingdom of Nubia, but was unsuccessful. Towards the end of his reign, he began to focus more on religion than politics. He converted to Islam and spent his later years building mosques and schools. Genghis Khan's grandson, Hulagu Khan. Hulagu Khan was the grandson of Genghis Khan and the founder of the Ilk. In 1256, he was ordered by his father, Guduk, to conquer the Middle East. He did so with astonishing speed, conquering everything from Syria to Azerbaijan. Once he reached the Middle East, he allied himself with the Christian and Jewish communities to help conquer the Muslim lands. He sacked and destroyed Baghdad, the second largest city in the world at the time, and he also destroyed the Ismailia, a fortified city in modern-day Syria. His empire would continue to thrive for a few decades after his death in 1265, but it would eventually fall to the forces of the Golden Horde. And that's a look at some great leaders and empires. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, and be nice to each other.